Hey guys, and welcome to the Basic to Bold podcast. I am Jen Bjarnson. I am really excited to talk to you today, mainly because this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I'm going to get right into it, which is mindset. And not just mindset, because this is so much of a buzzword right now. I think so many people instantly start talking about this, and like we get it, we know we need to change. I think there's just a lot that doesn't quite get said because there's a lot of willpower through it. Like there's a lot of people who say, you got to show up and you got to do it. And I know for me, when I was really struggling, I would listen to people and I would be like, yes, absolutely. But like how? What am I doing? I will do it. I will do the work. I have no problem doing the work. What work am I doing? So I want to talk about, first of all, I want to clarify like my version of mindset. And I think, why do some people, first of all, what is it? And for me, I think it is the beliefs that we have, the stories that we tell ourselves. I think so many times, I know for myself, but I do notice this with a lot of people too, like they often don't feel good enough. They just don't feel like they're good enough. They have this idea, they have this dream or this goal, and they just don't feel good enough. And the story that they continue to tell themselves is how true that is, that they're not good enough. I remember I met this one woman in my just in my life. She was not a great friend or a good friend. She was just more of an acquaintance that we would chat every now and again. And we were in a situation where just chatting, hey, how are you? What are you into? That kind of thing. We had kind of some time to kill. And I started asking her some questions about herself and learned that not only was this woman an author, but that she had written a book and had submitted this book, and it had gotten amazing reviews. And from what I understand, she had sent it in to not a publisher, it was like a competition from what I could gather from this story. It was like a competition, and you sent this in and you got feedback from it of whether or not your idea was a good idea, right? And so people would say, yes, I love this idea, or I don't, no, don't write this book. And when she got hers back, there were crazy amounts of people who were like, please finish this book. This is amazing. I cannot wait till, like, I gotta see the next one. I gotta know what happens. And as I was talking to her, in my mind, I'm going, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I mean, I could not believe it. I'm just like, this is the coolest story ever. Like, were you just so pumped? And the thing that blew my mind was, as I got to, what's next? She said, well, I need to like finish it. And I said, oh, you haven't finished it. And she goes, no, I have. I need to like send it in to like be finished. And so I'm trying to kind of understand what she's talking about, and she eventually just said, well, I won't finish it. And she's like, I'm just really nervous to like finish it and to be done. What if it's not good? And what if people don't like it? And I turned to her and I said, what do you mean people don't like, people are begging for you to finish this book? And she goes, yeah, I know. And I said, so are you not going to finish it? And she went on a laundry list of, well, I need to get the right publisher, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. Like, and I said, what if you just self-publish? No, I can't do that. Like, and finally I asked her, I said, how long have you had this book? Like, how long have you had it in this stage where it's at? And I think she said something like 5 years, right? And my mind at that point, I just went, I cannot even imagine putting all that time into something and then never finishing it. But the funny thing is then I looked at my life and I'm like, oh no, you've done this plenty of times yourself. And then people say, well, why don't you finish this? Why don't you see if this is a thing? And I'm like, well, I've gotta go do the dishes. I've gotta, I need to do this. And I just came up with the dumbest excuses. And that to me is a perfect example of what mindset is and the stories that we tell ourselves. And I often talk about Marissa Peer, and she says that we are dealing with three things. Everybody's dealing with three things, stories that we all believe, and they kind of entwine in different ways and they show up in different ways, but there's basically three. And I wholeheartedly believe it. And that is, number one, we don't feel good enough. We don't feel like it's going to be okay. It's whatever we're doing is good enough, right? Or we're not good enough. The second thing is we feel different. We feel like, oh, I'm the weirdo, or, oh, I'm going to look, I'm going to embarrass myself, that I'm going to look different. And sometimes I think we look at ourselves like, no, I want to be different. And I get that, but I also truly believe there are some things that are so scary or so different from the group or the people or the circle that we hang around that we can't venture out of that. And maybe in your group that you're all kind of different together, but I do think there's some things that intertwine in our life where you would not venture out because it's too different. It's so uncomfortably different. And that's kind of the stuff that I truly believe that she's talking about. And the third thing is that it's just not available to me. So other people can do XYZ. Other people can have a podcast. Other people can write a book. Other people are great, have great relationships. But that's not really something that I'll ever get. That's not really something that I'll ever have. And so these three things, they kind of, entwine in different ways into our lives. And I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in people that are important to me. And we frequently have this conversation when somebody's dealing with something, whether it's a friend or a client, we'll have this conversation, and I easily say, or we come to this belief of, okay, which one is this? Do you just not feel like you're enough? Do you not feel like it's available to you? Do you feel like you're different? And you can kind of bring things back to one of those three things. So I came up with this idea of why this happens. I came up with this little story, and bear with me if you really grasp the concept of mindset. If you really get mindset and you don't need it, but I really just love how this analogy it really resonated with me. So imagine when we're born, we all get, let's just say every day you wake up and you have a blank canvas and you have all these colors, right? Like you've just got this huge palette of colors. And when you're born, you are given this canvas every day and all of these colors. So every day you wake up and you're like, I'm going to paint this. Great. Well, at some point, some way, somehow, somebody tells you, you're using blue. We don't use blue. That's not a color for us. Oh, okay. And you're not really sure why, but no, that's not the color. And maybe you get shamed. No, we don't use blue, right? We don't use blue in this family, or blue's for, other people. Blue's for special people. Okay, so you go wake up again, and now you've got it trained in your head. We don't use blue, right? So then you wake up again and you start doing some things, and then they're like, you have other people come into your life, and you're like, are you mixing the colors? What are you doing? And so now you're embarrassed because you had this great idea and nobody else does this idea. and nobody else mixes the colors, right? Nobody else in your circle of friends mix the colors. So you just stick with the colors that you're given. So now you have this rule. Now you have a belief that you don't use blue and you don't mix the colors. And you go on with life. And the interesting thing is, as you go on with life, you look at other people that come into your life and you're like, well, that person uses blue. Right. Well, they use blue, but you're not allowed to use blue. Like, that's not for us, right? Or they have a special talent that they get to use blue. Okay. So you go on through life, and now more and more rules get put on you, right? You go to school and a teacher puts a rule on you like, well, do this, paint this picture. This is the way it's got to look. Oh, you built the lighthouse this way. Your picture of the lighthouse was this way. No, it should have been this way. So as you get older, every day you wake up and you get more and more rules put upon you about what colors you can use, how you can use these colors, what the picture needs to look like, what types of pictures that you can draw and paint, and what even you can use. Like, maybe you look over and somebody is now using clay and you're like, that looks amazing. No, that clay's for special people. That's for people who, not for us. You don't get to use the clay, right? So you kind of get this analogy of, as you get to an adult, you're now looking like, well, as a person, you're like, I have these ideas, but I can't use blue. I can't mix the colors. I can't use clay. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm not good enough for this. This isn't available to me. If I do this, I'm going to look weird. And so now you're boxed into what you can do, what you can't do. And it's like this really depressing day that you get up every day and you have these amazing ideas of what you want to create, and you're not allowed in your own mind. But the truth is, the colors and stuff, there are no rules. It's just everybody else put these rules on us. And when somebody says you have to change your mindset, the idea is you have to start removing the rules that aren't really there. We think are there. We think we can't mix the colors. We think we can't use blue. But the crazy thing is if you look around, somebody else is using blue. Somebody else is mixing the colors. And I hope this is resonating, because in life we do that so much. I know everybody I see, they have these ideas of things that they want to do in life, but then you immediately put, but I can't do that, or that will never happen and you put all these rules. I remember I was talking to somebody and I just asked the question, if you could do anything right now, today, what would you do? That was the question. That was it. You could do anything right now. What would you do? What would be your biggest dream? Okay. And they said, this was their answer: I would love to have a family vacation, but that would never happen because so-and-so, da-da-da, and blah, blah, blah. And that would never, and so-and-so would never go for it. And these two don't get along. So there's no way they're ever going to do it. And this person's working. I asked one simple question. My question was, what do you want? What is your dream? What is the biggest thing that you want to do in life? And it got followed up. They did answer, but it followed with 5 minutes of why that would never, ever happen. And that's exactly what we do with our stories. In our head, we have these rules. We have these belief systems that things will never happen. So the first thing I want you to do is start looking at these rules that somebody else has put on you, that maybe you totally, you heard one time and you were like, yep, that sounds accurate. That holds up. And then you adopted it. And the first step is really breaking down those rules and seeing which ones are really true and which ones are totally made up in your head. Like, I think the majority are made up. At least I found that in my life. the majority of my rules and the majority of things I thought were completely made up. Now, don't get me wrong. There were some where I thought, I don't think this person likes me. And I was like, yep, they don't. They don't like me. But the rule that I had was, well, because this person doesn't like me, then whatever it was. And that second part wasn't true. This person doesn't like me, which was true. And the second part was, well, then I can't. And that part was not. And so the first step in changing your mindset, first of all, understanding. But the first thing is choosing that you want to change it, that you recognize that your thinking is, for whatever reason, whether it is parents or school, or you had really something horrific in your life happen, you created stories and rules and beliefs that just aren't true. Now we do this, and I could go down the rabbit hole of why, but we do this because we want to keep us safe. We want to feel protected, but we really have this need we really have this absolute need of things that we have to have, okay? And I really credit Tony Robbins, which is the 6 needs, because this is where I heard it. I get it. It's all over. I'm pretty sure it was another psychologist dude who figured this out. I don't know exactly who it is, but I heard it from Tony Robbins. I've also heard it from so many other people who are into mindset and shifting our state and having a better life. But these 6 needs are what we absolutely just crave. The first one is variety, consistency, love and connection, significance. Now, those are the top 4. You have to have those top 4. The next 2 are growth and contribution. Okay. Now, the growth and contribution are so important to have an amazing life, but they are kind of secondary to variety, consistency, love, and connection. So you can live without growth and contribution. You cannot live without love and connection. Okay. So those are really important, because for myself, I found I was in a stage of my life where I would just serve, contribute. And I was not taking care of me. I was taking care of other people, and I was just serving. And I think sometimes we can have this belief where, and if you're in a religious affiliation, they talk about being selfless, and giving and service, and giving to others will lift you up. And yes, it can, but not if you're empty. Not if you're completely drained. That it doesn't work that way. So you need to make sure you have variety, consistency, love, and connection before you can get contribution and just give and give. And it will give you what they say. That selflessness, it definitely does serve you, and it's an amazing feeling. But you have to have the other things in order for it to give you the good feeling, because otherwise you're just serving from an empty cup, and it doesn't work. So I truly believe, going back to the analogy of these colors, we are all given variety, consistency, love and connection, significance, growth and contribution. These things are widely available to us. However, I really believe that as we go through life, we're shown little rules and little belief systems as to why we can't get love, as to why we shouldn't be significant. Oh, you want to start that business, which would give you variety and significance and be very exciting and make you fulfilled in life? No. We don't start businesses in this family. We get 9-to-5 jobs because we play it safe, because that's what we do. And if you go off the beaten path, right? If you start this whole venture, now people are like, oh, how's your little side hustle? And you get that whole shame and guilt. So now you have a belief system, right? Just like can't use the blue, but instead of a color, Okay, now you don't get significance. You can get significance in other ways, but not by starting a company. No, you don't venture off into that. So the next step in this whole mindset is recognizing where you're at in these variety, consistency, love, connection, growth, and contribution. So what I like to do is I put them all like in a heading, okay? And so then I say, all right, how am I getting variety? What am I getting for variety? What am I doing to get consistency? What am I doing to get love and connection? How do I get significance? How do I get growth? How do I get contribution? And I label what I'm doing at that moment that gets me those things. The interesting thing, when I first did this, I was depleted. I mean, I was getting nothing in like 3 of the areas, nothing. And then 2 of the areas were like a list, a mile long. So it was insanely out of balance. So the second part is you look at variety, consistency, love, connection, significance, growth, contribution. And then you say, okay, what could I do to get this? What could I do to get variety? Now, this is kind of an interesting thing because I found this is where I got very triggered, because now I thought, okay, what could I do to get variety? Because that was a lower one for me. And I started getting very triggered. It was like, oh, this is interesting. Well, I could do this. Oh my gosh, but that just sounds like so much work. That sounds like so much stress. And now I'm going, well, that's interesting. Okay, so this brings us to the third part. The interesting thing is now take notice to what is triggering you. All right, you have no variety in your life. So coming up with ideas of variety are very triggering. And for me, but again, use this for you. Like, figure out what your triggers are. But what I recognized is I was really good at consistency because that was kind of my safe space. I was really good at consistency because I felt safe there, and variety felt very unsafe for me. And so then I had to go back. That's a whole other podcast, but I had to go back and I had to work on those triggers. Okay. Now that is a whole other podcast on how I work on those triggers. But that is where you're going to figure out what those triggers are. And those triggers are those rules that you have been fighting. And this is where some people, they don't fight certain things. They are off and they are having the time of their life. They're traveling the world. They are doing fun stuff. They don't have triggers. They don't have rules around variety. They are living their best life in that area. For me, I was triggered like crazy. And so when you kind of start looking at this list, now you're going to see your rules. Now you're going to start seeing those rules come up, those beliefs come up of what's allowed and what's not allowed. What did you create? What did your parents create? What did school create? What did coaches, other people in your life of saying, no, we don't use blue. We don't mix the colors. You're going to start to see where those really show up, because those 6 areas are basically our fundamental needs minus food, water, shelter. And so you can start seeing the holes in your life, which will show you the holes in your mindset and where you need to start using them or to start changing them. All right. So you do have to choose, okay? And I know you've got to make the decision that you want to change. And there are going to be some days, don't get me wrong, there's totally going to be some days where you wake up and you're going to say, you know what? I'm okay with mediocrity for today. And that's okay. I've done it too. I've sat on the couch and I'm like, I'm not changing today. I'm not doing it. I'm so over change. I'm so over growth. I'm so over service. I want to stay here and I want to not do anything. And I get it. And that's okay for a day or two if you've really, really hit a low. But at some point you got to decide, all right, I'm not going to do mediocrity. I want a better life. I want this to get better. All right. The next thing is start being around those who have the life that you want. Now, this is going to show you also where some of those holes are. So, for instance, you may not even realize that you're not allowed to use the color blue until you get around people and you're looking at their artwork and you're going, whoa, where'd that color come from? And they show you, yeah, it's right here. Look, see, you have it too. And you're like, I didn't see that. Or, yeah, you just mix these two colors together and you get this color. And you're like, whoa. And that's what being around people who have what you have or what you want. They're going to show you the direction to go. They're going to show you how they did it. They're going to show you the way they think. Because you may sit there and go, well, yeah, I see that I have the color blue, but I can't use it. And they're going to be the people that say, why? Okay, I was told when I was 3 years old, that's not possible. And they're going to look at you and go, you're not 3. Why can't you use it? It's right there. Use it. Like me and the lady with the book. I'm like, why are you not publishing this? Oh, I can't. Why? Oh, I need to get, I need to do this. Self-publish it. Oh, I couldn't do that. Why? Okay. The next one is remove. Learn the behaviors that you need to remove, the triggers. We've talked about that, and remove them. And then the last thing that I would say, and this is really an important part, especially if you can remember to do this every day and start changing into this person. And that is, be the person that really start actively changing into what you want. And that is going to take some insane positivity. And I know that this sounds so cliche of just, positive affirmations, but this is a major part, because if you are still stuck back in that, well, I don't know, I'm not really that type of person, and you still have that, it doesn't matter how much you remove. It doesn't really matter how much you're around people. If you don't change who you are to the core, it's not going to change. And so this is where you got to actively start going, okay, it may be a fight at first, but you're going to have to actively start changing what it now looks like. Okay, you had this idea that you can't use blue. You may have to get up every day and go, I'm going to use blue. I get to use blue. I get to think this way. I get to be an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. I am going to start this business. And not only am I going to start it, it's going to be successful. And if you can kind of see, you may have to start really small with just like, I'm going to start a business. And it might bring you a little like, ooh, and you might have to do some energy work or hypnotherapy on that, or meditation, or whatever works for you, right? You're going to have to work on that. And you may have to start really small with like, I'm going to do this. This is happening. I'm going to do this. And maybe you can't say, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm successful. Maybe you can't jump to that, but you can start with, I'm going to do this. And eventually it's going to work into, I am this person. And then it's going to be, I'm great at doing this. I'm really, really good at this. And so if you need to actively move towards that, make sure you're training your brain every day to actively move towards that. One of the ways I love doing that is using hypnotherapy recordings. That's what I love to do. Whether you go, now I make them myself because I'm a hypnotherapist, but you can find them. Go on YouTube. You can try different things. You can even record your own voice on your phone saying, I'm successful, I'm amazing, and play it while you're asleep. Play it. I'm successful. I'm amazing. I'm great at business. I'm great at parenting. have amazing relationships. Whatever you want. Record your voice saying it so that it really starts training your brain so you can actively start switching it from this negative belief that's not true to now what it is that you want. All right. I love doing these. I definitely want to talk more about this. And if you guys would love to hear more, I'm all over social media. And definitely reach out, DM me if you guys have any questions, and we will see you guys next time.